The anime starts with 4 students being transported to another world. There, a maiden welcomes them and is pleased that the heroes have answered her call. One of the attendants begins reading each one's abilities, revealing a swordsman, a holy mage, and a light mage. However, upon noticing another hero, he decides to read their abilities as well. This hero is the protagonist of this story, 27-year-old Tsuyoshi Mukata, whose only ability is an online store, disappointing everyone including himself. While the others are praised by the attendants and royalty, Tsuyoshi is not. Later, the heroes visit the king, who asks for their help in maintaining peace in the Reisiger kingdom, as the Demon King is attempting to start a war. The heroes accept, but Tsuyoshi refuses to participate due to his perceived lack of usefulness with his abilities. Instead, the kingdom gives him gold coins to start his life outside the kingdom. After changing his attire, Tsuyoshi finds a place to spend the night and examines his abilities. He discovers that besides the online store, he also has something called an item box. Despite initially enjoying being away from trouble caused by the royal people, he decides to test his abilities further. He realizes he enjoys it and decides to leave the country to use it for trading. The next day, Tsuyoshi decides to travel to the city of Keels with some travelers. Among them is a peddler who tells him about soaps he sells, which are considered valuable items carried in a bag due to the item box being rare. Tsuyoshi shares his idea of crossing the border to the neighboring country with the peddler, who supports it as the borders are set to close. Arriving in Keels, Tsuyoshi discovers all transportation has been suspended because the kingdom plans to provoke a war preventing anyone from leaving. Later, he goes to a bar to find companions to travel to Vienen on foot, which he manages after paying 8 gold coins, a hefty sum. There he meets Werner of the Iron Will and his Rank C adventurer team. Tsuyoshi offers to handle the food in exchange for their company. The next day, they depart at dawn and Werner introduces his team, Vicent, Rita, Raymond, and Franca. Along the way, they stop to rest and eat, where Tsuyoshi impresses the group with his cooking skills, using items from his item box, allowing him to travel light. After they finish eating, the team faces monsters, with Werner and Vicent handling combat. They keep a monster meat for their journey. Tsuyoshi prepares another meal using the meat, hiding its origins from his online store, and impresses them again. As they continue, Tsuyoshi checks his stats and worries that the food from his world might not suit their tastes. Unaware, they are being watched by a nearby monster. They rest for the night, and Tsuyoshi cooks using leftover meat, which attracts a monster that had been following them. The team again enjoys Tsuyoshi's cooking, amazed by its taste compared to their usual fare of hard bread. Fenrir, a large animal, appears and demands to taste Tsuyoshi's food. Satisfied, Fenrir consumes all the remaining meat and insists on forming a familial contract with Tsuyoshi, despite his objections backed by the adventurers. From then on, Fenrir becomes Tsuyoshi's responsibility, expecting 3 meals a day, leaving Tsuyoshi astonished. After the incident, the animal asks him to give it a name, so the protagonist starts suggesting different dog names, which angers the monster. Eventually, they settle on Fel. The next day, before reaching the city of Vienen, the leader is concerned because Fenrir is accompanying them, and soldiers might be after Mukota, which worries the protagonist now. However, Fel reassures him that he will take care of anyone who gets in the way of his cook, reminding him it's lunchtime. Finding no meat left, Mukota asks the monster to hunt his own food. In just seconds, Fel brings back a huge bird, which Mukota uses to prepare a meal for the group and the monster. Later, the team reaches the border where they see many soldiers due to knowing that Fel is with them. Werner approaches them to explain the situation. After verifying their familial bond and that they haven't caused trouble, the soldier allows them to pass but warns that any issues will lead to pursuit. Since Mukota doesn't belong to any guild, he must pay taxes for both himself and Fel upon entering the kingdom. Once inside the kingdom, Mukota tells his companions that he wants to travel the world and sell his food. Werner suggests he join a guild to avoid entry taxes in cities and advises him to carefully choose a guild without revealing Fel's presence. Later, a Margrave's servant invites Mukota to his master's estate, knowing about his bond with Fel. The protagonist refuses, but the persistent man angers the beast, who interrupts and warns him to stop trying to take advantage of their power. The servant flees in fear. Werner then asks Mukota to sign his contract as their journey together ends, thanking him for the delicious meals. Mukota and Fel head to the Merchants Guild to register. Despite everyone's surprise at the animal's presence, the manager treats them kindly and explains the process. Mukota joins the guild with the lowest rank, Iron Rank. Afterward, Fel expresses hunger, so Mukota prepares a meal and experiments with different sauces, impressing Fel despite his noticing. The next day, Mukota goes to the guild to sell his merchandise. The woman is surprised by the contents of his bags and introduces him to her boss. Mukota worries it might have been a bad idea, but the man praises the quality and rarity of his salt and pepper merchandise, offering him 14 gold coins. Mukota calculates his expenses and profit, realizing he only used copper coins, but the man, sensing his hesitation, increases the offer to 17 gold coins, leaving Mukota astonished at the unexpectedly high payment. Afterward, he visits the Adventurers Guild, where he feels out of place. Unlike the merchant, the attendant treats him indifferently and explains his G rank, allowing him to undertake missions suitable for that rank. Mukata selects a mission to gather medicinal herbs from the mission board. Before leaving, Fel waits for him to cook, during which Mukata checks his abilities and realizes the monster is incredibly powerful, pondering the effects of garlic on cats and dogs. The next day, Mukata wakes up determined to begin his first adventure collecting medicinal herbs. However, Fel is in a bad mood because he's hungry and wants to eat meat. Later, the protagonist decides to start gathering herbs, but the animal is still hungry since there wasn't enough meat. So Mukata suggests they split up. He'll do his mission while Fel hunts for food. Worried about leaving the human alone, Fel provides a protective shield because there are monsters in the area. Mukata finishes collecting the herbs and starts cooking. Fel returns with a huge bird, pleased that Mukata enjoyed the food made from its meat. Despite catching other animals, Fel left them at the forest exit. Mukata prepares spaghetti, and though Fel hesitates, he enjoys it, and they leave the forest, storing the animals in his item box. Despite concerns about orcs and bipedal pig-like creatures, boars, they decide to store them anyway. After finishing, they return to the guild to deliver the herbs. Fel asks Mukata to ride on his torso for a quicker return. The young man astounds the woman with the amount of herbs he gathered. He mentions wanting to sell the orcs, explaining that Fel hunted them. Blushing, she directs him to another manager for larger prey sales. The man shows them a storehouse filled with monster parts. Impressed with their haul, Mukata agrees to take only the meat, leaving the rest to the guild. Fel insists on orc meat for himself. Unsure about cooking orc meat, Mukata tries it and enjoys the luxurious pork-like taste. The next day, Mukata returns to the Adventurers Guild, where they're ready with all the monster meat Fel hunted. They reward him with a substantial 220 gold coins for the valuable remains like skins, tusks, and other parts. He also receives gemstones found inside Ranka monsters. Before he leaves, the man shares rumors that the beast he's linked with might be a great wolf or even a true Fenrir, but based on his experience, he's certain it's a Fenrir. Due to this, Mukata suggests Fel stay away from the city to stay safe and avoid trouble. Later, they leave the city, and this time Mukata decides to buy pre-made food for Fel, who loves the taste of food from the other world. That night, Fel feels stronger, attributing it to Mukata's cooking leveling him up. Feeling energetic, Fel suggests he could defeat a dragon of his level and goes hunting while Mukata rests, trusting in Fel's protective shield. Fel easily defeats opponents with a single blow. The next day, Mukata wakes up to find a massive number of monsters around them, more than before, prompting him to set boundaries on Fel's feeding. After the incident, the protagonist finishes preparing Fel's food following the hunt. Mukata seizes the opportunity to ask if Fel uses magic to defeat enemies. The animal replies he uses magic to deal with multiple foes at once, but primarily relies on claws and teeth. Mukata tries using magic himself, but despite Fel's encouragement and demonstration, he struggles to produce any magic and feels embarrassed. Later, Mukata manages to conjure weak fireballs with his magic, but Fel urges him to fight to gain more power and level up. Reluctant, Mukata is left by Fel to face a large group of goblins alone, prompting him to flee in fear. Eventually, he manages to cast a fireball, hitting one goblin but exhausting himself in the process. Saved by Fel's protective shield, Mukata collapses and is rescued by Fel. During the night, Mukata wakes up frightened by the goblins. Fel asks about his first battle, and although Mukata is upset about being left alone, Fel explains it was to make him stronger. Despite his initial fears, Mukata's magic level increased and the last fireball he cast was more powerful. In return for making him stronger, Fel requests food, but Mukata, lacking energy to cook, asks for sweets from another world, unsure if Fel, who prefers meat, will like them. Despite initial doubts, Fel enjoys the sweets and asks for more, assuring Mukata he's immune to diseases and poisons due to being blessed by the wind goddess Ninrir, which makes him stronger than before. Mukata wishes he were similarly blessed, but is overheard by a woman as he prays to the gods. The next day, they reach a town where locals fear the giant wolf. Soldiers stop them, but Mukata explains their familial bond, allowing them passage under the condition he's held responsible if Fel causes trouble. During a discussion, Mukata hears a voice in his head denying Fel's wolf identity, leading Fel to reveal they can communicate telepathically. Inside the town, Mukata finds lodging and asks Fel to wait there while he searches for a map, realizing they've been traveling aimlessly. After an unsuccessful search, he returns to find Fel impatient and hungry at their accommodation. The following day, Mukata visits a bar and buys drinks for a group of men in exchange for information about the country. Learning they have a map, he agrees to buy it for a gold coin, but is mocked by others for overpaying when they reveal it could be purchased cheaper at the Adventurers Guild. Reunited with Fel, Mukata laments losing the gold coin, but realizes having Fel with him means he can earn money quickly. They study the map and decide to head towards the coast. The next day, the wind goddess realizes that her servant Fenrir now has a familial bond with a human, which disappoints her somewhat considering the type of human he has made a contract with. Meanwhile, the protagonist arrives at a lake with Fel, who desires to eat some fish. Without hesitation, Fel enters the water and uses his electric power to catch some fish. Later, Makoto uses several of them to prepare dinner, though Fel is impatient and eager to taste the food. Once the meal is ready, both are pleased with the flavors, and Makoto takes a moment to enjoy a drink, having not done so in a while. However, when Fel asks for more food, a small slime appears before them. Fel decides not to attack as the slime is too weak. Later, the young man realizes the slime is hungry but doesn't know what it should eat. The slime demonstrates it feeds on trash, which surprises Makoto. However, he ends up embracing it, unknowingly forming a familial bond as the small monster had wanted this from the start, and Makoto reciprocated its feelings. From this moment on, the little slime is named Sui. The next morning, the protagonist begins practicing his magic, now able to produce small rocks. However, Fel still finds it pathetic and urges him to fight again to increase his potential. But Makoto refuses. Fel becomes hungry, so Makoto prepares food, noticing that Sui has grown a bit in size. This time, Makoto plans to not only feed Fel, but also the small slime. After they finish eating, Makoto feels happy as Sui not only disposes of trash, but also cleans the remains in their pans. The following day, when Makoto wakes up, Fel informs him that the wind goddess communicated with him, heard his plea, and decided to bless him. However, Makoto must provide offerings once a week along with prayers. Makoto considers this, but immediately accepts, knowing it will help advance his magic level. Once he makes his prayers, sweets are sent to Ninrir and Makoto is blessed, though his blessing is lesser than Fel's. Meanwhile, Ninrir enjoys the sweets and is fascinated, quickly finishing them. A few days later, the young man continues practicing his earth magic, throwing rocks and noticing his increased speed and potential. However, he worries about Fel, who left early and hasn't returned. Fel appears and realizes Makoto and Sui have been eating chocolate, so he asks for some as well. At that moment, Ninrir sends Makoto a message asking for more offerings as she wants to try the chocolate. Makoto starts to feel used and taken advantage of, but he complies anyway. Later, Fel asks the young man to continue on their journey, though he seems somewhat concerned. After the events, Fel takes Makoto to a dungeon so he can increase his earth magic level as he did with his fire magic. The young man starts worrying as he feels unprepared to enter and fight other monsters, but eventually agrees as the beast manages to convince him. Before entering, Makoto decides to fuel up with food from another world, telling Fel that eating this food boosts his stats. He wants to test this theory and enhance his abilities before facing the monsters. While eating, the beast realizes what his human said is true, as both he and Sui increase their levels. Once finished, the young man feels satisfied, having boosted his skills by 20%. Later, the protagonist is ready to enter the dungeon, albeit somewhat fearful, unlike Sui, who is excited to fight. Makoto is surprised that his sweet Sui wants to battle. The first opponent they face is a small slug, which Sui defeats first, followed by Makoto. They realize defeated foes are absorbed by the dungeon, as Fel explains. After facing some horned rabbits and wolves, Makoto must battle a large group of wolves to fully utilize his magic, ultimately overcoming them with Sui's help. However, the Wolf King appears after his subordinates lose, surprising Makoto, who decides to finish the job but ends up fleeing when his magic proves too weak against the wolf. Fel warns that his barrier won't hold against the wolf's attacks. Cornered, Makoto manages to injure the Wolf King with a large rock but runs out of energy. Sui comes to his rescue and defeats the enemy, causing the young man to faint. Later, Makoto wakes up outside the dungeon with a worried Sui beside him. He's surprised to find that the little monster has leveled up and can now speak, which delights him as Sui has become even more endearing. Fel appears and the protagonist notices a red stain on the beast's snout, realizing Fel was simply hungry waiting for him to wake up. Fel insists nothing beats Makoto's cooking and asks him to prepare something. Makoto agrees as he needs to regain his strength. After eating, Makoto wonders if Sui could communicate with Fel, which the little one confirms, even starting to call him Uncle Fel. This amuses Makoto, who teases Fel about it, causing the beast to scold Sui, making her cry. Eventually, Fenrir has no choice but to accept being called Uncle, while referring to Makoto as Master. As they continue their journey, Fel explains to Makoto that there are two types of monsters inhabiting the territory they must cross, which humans usually avoid by going around. However, they decide to cut through it. The young man gets scared as Fel speaks of monster bosses with high ranks, but the beast is confident, stating that only cowards try to avoid them. Suddenly, large animals appear before them, and in a flash, Fel dispatches one of them, scaring off the rest. Later, both Makoto and Sui come out of hiding, with the little slime expressing a desire to become strong like her Uncle Fel. Later on, Makoto fears the monsters might reappear since they are still in her territory, so he asks Fel to set up a barrier for safety. However, Fel is solely focused on eating and asks the young man to feed him. Mukata feels like Fel only thinks about eating, but when Sui asks, he immediately starts cooking. This makes Fel think Mukata behaves differently around them. This time, he prepares the black serpent that Fel hunted, but once finished, his companions devour all the food without leaving any leftovers for Mukata. The next day, the group continues their journey, but Fel stops as he spots healing mushrooms in the area. Mukata wastes no time in collecting some to sell later, but Sui eats a few, which worries Mukata as the little slime starts glowing briefly. The young man checks Sui's stats and discovers she now has the ability to create healing potions. They ask Sui to try using the ability, and she successfully creates 3 types of healing potions, which Mukata stores in bottles. Fel remarks that Sui is truly intelligent and unique among her kind, which makes Sui happy. As they proceed, they encounter a large bird that scares Mukata, but this griffin asks Fel to fight him so he can become the leader of his flock. The monsters begin to battle, and despite the griffin putting up a fight, Fel emerges victorious, having become much stronger. The bird is seriously injured, but thanks to Sui's potions, it is healed. To Mukata's surprise, the bird manages to lightly wound Fenrir, which pleases him as it is now accepted as their leader. In return, the griffin gives the protagonist a feather, ensuring their safety from his flock the next time they pass through. The following day, the protagonist and his companions successfully cross the forest but start feeling hungry. Fel immediately goes out to hunt for food, but in the distance, they spot a caravan under attack by bandits. Mukata asks Fel to save the caravan, promising him a grand feast in return. Fel rushes to the scene and manages to scare off the bandits, causing them to surrender. The man in charge, Lambert, along with the soldiers, expresses gratitude and explains they are heading to the city of Carolina. The protagonist and his companions ask to accompany them on their journey. After the events, the protagonist overhears soldiers talking about rumors of a Fenrir or a great wolf traveling with a human. Mukata starts worrying about what the nobles in the city they are heading to will do when they find out they are there. As night falls, Fel asks for the grand feast the protagonist promised him. They need to move away from the soldiers to cook in peace. Once they are alone, Mukata decides to use the leftover meat he has. After finishing cooking, both Fel and Sui are fascinated by the variety of meat they are tasting. However, the aroma of the food reaches the soldiers and Lambert, so they approach Mukata. He has no choice but to share the food with them, and they end up consuming all the remaining food. In exchange for the excellent meal, the soldiers ask Mukata to rest while they keep watch during the night. The next day, they arrive at the city of Carolina, much to Mukata's surprise as it is larger than he expected. Lambert informs him that he is a merchant and invites him to his shop while Mukata heads to the Adventurers Guild with the soldiers. At the guild, Mukata learns that his registration was suspended due to an activity, so he re-registers. This time, he explains to the receptionist that he has added another member to his family, showing Sui, but the woman is scared, and the people around laugh at him for traveling with a slime. Nonetheless, Mukata is happy to have the little one with him. At that moment, the protagonist asks to sell the animals Fel hunted, and the soldiers who traveled with him request to witness what kind of creatures they are. Upon reaching the storage, they are surprised by the number of monsters. The guild representative is pleased to handle such high-quality goods, but warns Mukata to be cautious about who he deals with as he could be deceived. When the soldiers hear Mukata talking about how delicious the meat of these monsters is, they wonder what kind of meat they ate that night in the desert. Upon learning it was the same creatures, they apologize to Mukata for not realizing they were enjoying such excellent quality food. During the night, Mukata thinks he can finally rest a bit, but at that moment, the wind goddess sends him a message reminding him to send offerings as he forgot to do so. The next day, the protagonist tries to find a mission to rank up, considering something similar to his first herb-gathering mission. However, Fel suggests hunting goblins as it will not only rank him up, but also increase his magic level. The young man is reluctant to fight as he is still traumatized by battles, but Fel convinces Sui to go with him to fight. Upon taking the mission, they immediately set out to hunt goblins. Along the way, they encounter 3 goblins that Sui quickly dispatches with her acid attack. However, part of the mission requires them to bring back proof, which Mukata is hesitant to do and ultimately has no choice, ending up on the ground due to nausea. At that moment, another group of goblins arrives, which the small slime confronts, and Mukata has to complete the other part of the task. Once they finish, the group is unsure what to do with the goblins' remains, so they ask Sui to melt them all. They didn't expect the little slime to grow enormous, so they ask her to shrink back, and when she does, hundreds of small Suis emerge to help dispose of the remains. The protagonist is amazed at how powerful Sui has become. However, now he doesn't know what to do as he thought the mission would take much longer, but they finished it in just one day. Afterwards, Mukata returns to the city to deliver parts of the goblins as proof that he completed his mission. However, the local women are surprised and end up talking to the guild master, who then requests to speak with the young man. Mukata is worried about what might happen, but the guild master congratulates him for defeating so many goblins and protecting their city from goblin settlements. As a reward, he informs Mukata that the kingdom has decreed everyone can live freely in their realm, with the condition of being able to request help in emergencies, which makes the young man happy. Then the guild master realizes Mikado wants to rank up, so he promises to help him advance to rank C and offers special missions specifically for Fel, who accepts. Mikado informs the guild master that he wants to sell other goods in addition to what he has already sold, so they go to the warehouse where both the guild master and the warehouse worker are surprised not only by the number of beasts, but also by the type of monsters they are. However, it's difficult to pay because the guild doesn't have that much money, but they still ask Mikado to return the next day. Meanwhile, during the remaining night, the protagonist prepares food for his companions. The next day, Mikado returns to the guild where the guild master awaits him with a large number of bags filled with gold coins. In the end, he was paid over 1,000 gold coins not only for the monsters but also as a reward for his duty to protect the city. The guild master takes the opportunity to give him his new guild card with rank C and assigns him 2 missions, one to hunt a metal lizard and another to deal with a herd of bulls, but all Fel and Mukura can think about is cooking the bull meat. Later, the group arrives at Mr. Lambert's shop where the young man buys a bag to comfortably carry Sui, who chooses one of the bags. Mukura also buys a belt to carry his cooking utensils, boots, and an accessory. Trying to stop him, Mr. Lambert gives him the products as a gift since the young man saved his life and because he learned that the food they ate that night was delicious. Mukura feels embarrassed but has no choice but to accept. Before leaving, Mr. Lambert asks him to sell him the skin of a red snake next time he hunts one, as there is a shortage of that type of skin. After finishing the purchases, Fel is upset because they took too long in the shop, and talking about snakes has made him hungry. However, now they have to wait until the next day to start one of the missions assigned by the guild master. In the evening, the young man prepares some food to feed his companions but plans for them to eat too much so they won't ask for more. Later, he manages to do so, taking the time to prepare food to eat later and finally relax and enjoy the meal comfortably accompanied by a delicious drink. The next day, the group begins their missions, starting with a hunt for the metal lizard. Thanks to Fel's keen sense of smell, they reach a cave where the animal might reside. Mikado plans to wait outside the cave, but his companion ignores him and takes him along. Upon entering the cave, they encounter a different type of metal lizard, the only one Fel detects. He casts a powerful spell against it, but the lizard proves too strong, sending Mikado and Sui flying. Before leaving the cave, the protagonist decides to gather the minerals present, coming up with the idea to create a shield from the strong and resistant mineral. This angers Fel since there's nothing stronger than his barrier. Later, the group continues their journey as the beast wants to finish the next mission to eat meat. Upon reaching the herd of bulls, Mikado stays at a distance not to interfere while Fel handles his task. Sui wants to go with her uncle as she also wants to fight. While Mikado is hidden, surprisingly his companions launch a powerful attack towards the herd, annihilating them. However, due to the large number of bulls, the young man is unsure if they will fit into his item box. After finishing their work, the group is exhausted, so Mikado prepares food. Sui notices her master drinking something peculiar and decides to try it, fascinated, while Fel also drinks, but the carbonated drink makes him burp, much to his embarrassment. However, Mikado and the little slug laugh at him. The next day, Mikado returns to the city and brings the metal lizard to the Adventurers Guild. They are surprised to see the kind of lizard the young man brings, as a mithril metal lizard is a rare species, with the last known specimen seen around 400 years ago. The guild master informs him that they don't have a large amount to pay, but the city lord will use it to present the skin to the public, so he might receive a large sum of money, close to 5,000 gold coins. The protagonist is surprised but also worried as he doesn't know what to do with so much money and doesn't feel safe. However, the guild master asks him to wait until they get the payment and mentions the bull mission, but is surprised to find that the young man and his team have already completed it. Leaving the guild, Mikado decides to prepare dinner, this time with a grand banquet featuring the bull meat they collected. At the end of the meal, all 3 characters are fascinated by the great taste of the steak. At the end of the day, Mikado remembers that he hasn't sent his offerings to the wind goddess, so while at the inn, he decides to send her plenty of sweets. However, he hears many women's voices because the other goddesses found out that Ninmur is receiving offerings due to the blessing he bestowed upon the human. For this reason, the other goddesses request offerings in exchange for their blessings from the other elements of nature. But the young man tries to refuse, thinking they are self-interested. The fire and earth goddesses try to convince him that their blessings will help enhance his magic, but the protagonist declines as he doesn't see it necessary. This annoys the goddesses, but they still give him their blessings and now they await the offerings. However, the water goddess is sad as she is the only one the young man is incompatible with, so now he has to fix the situation. Mikado, unsure of what to do, asks her to bless Sui, since she is compatible with water. When everything is done, the boy sends offerings to all the goddesses so they can enjoy the sweets equally, leaving the goddesses delighted. The next day, Mikado goes into the forest to test his powers and realizes that his magic has increased significantly. Not only him, but Sui has also become stronger, even stronger than the young man, knocking down a large tree with a single blow. Fel, seeing this, asks to fight the little slug as he now considers her a worthy opponent, but Mukoda opposes this. While the protagonist continues to test his magic, Fel goes out for a walk. However, upon returning, he notices that Mukoda has created a small house for them to spend the night in the area. Fel brings a snake, as promised to Lambert, but only brings it to eat, which saddens the young man as they have to return to the city, and he couldn't enjoy a small inn. After a few days, the team returns to the city to ask the guild worker to take care of the black snake skin since he plans to sell it. The man agrees and also rewards him for the bull herd he brought. Later, the protagonist is ready to cook, but this time he wants to use a grinder to grind the meat, which Sui helps with during the meat preparation process. Once finished, all three are delighted with the meat hamburger dish, some even stuffed with cheese. Afterward, Mukoda tries to wash his clothes, but the soap he uses isn't to his liking, so he doesn't hesitate to order products from the online store since soap already exists in that world. This gives him the idea of being able to commercialize products since he has not yet implemented his merchant rank. Later, the young man meets Lambert to deliver the black snake skin he had promised, leaving the man happy and paying him a large amount of money. However, the boy takes the opportunity to show him the soap products he has in his possession in the hope that he will allow him to sell them in his store. The man is delighted by the scent, especially since his wedding anniversary is approaching and he hasn't found a gift for his wife yet, which will make her happy as she enjoys taking baths. Mukoda learns that Lambert owns a bathtub and becomes so excited that he asks to see it since he hasn't taken a bath in a long time and now wants to do so. After the meeting, the merchant proposes to the young man to try the products before giving him an answer. The next day, Mukoda returns to the store and this time is welcomed by Lambert and the merchant's wife, as after Lambert took his bath, she could smell the soap's scent, and even her hair became softer, which amazed her. So she also decided to take a bath. The reason she is in the store is to ask Mukoda to agree to sell his products in her store, as she is certain that the women in the city would buy them without hesitation. The young man accepts the proposal upon hearing it, as he still does not have his own store. After the meeting, Mukoda tells Fel that he has left enough soap for them to last for a while, but he still needs to visit the guild master, which puts Fel in a bad mood as he wants to leave the city. Upon arriving at the guild, a man is waiting for him with several bags of gold coins, as the city lord is grateful for the merchandise the young man brought. Mukoda is now excited as he will be able to buy his dream bathtub. At that moment, one of the workers interrupts their meeting as a swarm of monsters has attacked a team of adventurers, leaving them injured. Immediately, the three rush to their aid, but upon seeing how severely wounded the adventurers are and that the guild has run out of medicine to treat them, the protagonist remembers the potions that Sui created, so he hands them the bottles. The people present are surprised at how effective the potions are, but the guild master thanks the boy. However, he gets upset and proposes to all high-ranking adventurers to go out and attack the swarm, otherwise it will reach the city. At that moment, Fel interrupts them to inform them that he will go in their place but will keep all the monsters in return. Upon arriving at the scene, Fel proposes to Sui to fight together, something Mukoda disagrees with as he doesn't want his little one to get hurt, but the slut agrees to fight as she enjoys it. The beast gives her instructions on where to attack her partner to be able to defeat the enemies, and working together they manage to finish them all off while the protagonist is only hiding to save his life. As a reward for their work, Mukoda prepares a delicious meal for his companions as they were hungry after fighting so hard. Meanwhile, the Adventurers Guild awaits Mukoda and his team's arrival, hoping everyone is safe. After what happened, the guild continues to wait for the arrival of Fenrir and the others. Once they arrive, the guild master is surprised when Fel tells them that they have finished off the entire swarm and they don't sense any more around the city, which makes everyone happy. However, he is surprised that they took so long to finish them off. The beast explains that they actually ended the battle in a matter of minutes, but spent the day enjoying a delicious meal. The soldiers relay this to the city to calm the citizens. Later, the protagonist tries to sell what they collected to the guild, but they can't buy all their merchandise, so they only pay in half. At the end of the day, Mukoda tries to send offerings to the goddesses since he hasn't done so in a week. However, when he is about to buy the products, each goddess sends him a private message requesting specific offerings separately. This annoys the young man because they are only using him. He communicates with all of them to tell them that in the end, everyone will realize they are asking for private offerings without any reason. Reluctantly, Mukoda ends up sending each of them what they desire. The next day, the young man heads to a store to buy his bathtub, which he doesn't have to think much about since anyone will satisfy him. After choosing one, the merchant is surprised because the young man didn't hesitate to buy one and pay in advance, which pleases the merchants. After completing the purchase, the team leaves the city and heads to the forest because the protagonist wants to take a good bath. However, Fel doesn't want to be present, so he decides to leave and hunt. Once the beast is gone, Mukoda, with Sui's help, prepares the bathtub with hot water and constructs walls of earth around it to resemble a sauna. After finishing, the young man enjoys a warm bath with his little friend. Afterward, both are satisfied as they now have a pleasant aroma, but they notice Fel has not returned. So the protagonist starts cooking since the food will be ready by the time his friend returns, but after finishing, Fel still hasn't returned, so he starts preparing another dish. Finally, he hears a noise coming from the bushes and a huge monster falls in front of him, startling the boy. However, it turns out to be Fel who defeated an earth dragon, claiming to be the only worthy opponent he could beat, proving himself stronger. The Great Wolf asks Mukaba to sell the dragon and get its meat, but the young man doubts whether the guild can handle that task, yet he stores it in his item box. Later, the beast realizes that his human has prepared food, so he immediately wants to eat. However, the young man asks him to take a bath first since he got dirty fighting the dragon, which offends Fel, but he has no choice if he wants to eat. Mukaba and Sui manage to bathe their companion, who shines brightly after a good bath and can finally enjoy the food prepared by the protagonist. The next day, the team arrives at the Adventurers Guild, but to their luck, the workers there cannot handle the task he wants, let alone buy his merchandise. However, they mention a man who can help since he is well connected with dragons, but you must go to the city of Dolan, and at the guild there, they can handle the task. Before leaving, the young man stops by Lambert's store to leave more products since their journey will take some time. Then the guild master gives Mukaba a map and a letter for the guild master of Dolan. However, the team plans to pass by the sea as Fel wants to try seafood.